Hello, Erica here, and I'm here today to do my December wrap-up. So I'm going to tell you about the things that I read in December. I was not really present on BookTube in December, so I haven't done reviews of any of these yet, and I haven't really talked about any of them. They are absolutely not what was on my TBR. For my TBR, I said I was going to do like a short story a day in December, and that is not at all even close to what happened. So sorry about that. Moving forward for 2016, at least for now, I'm not going to do monthly TBRs. I will do TBRs for readathons and for like special monthly themed events and things like that. And I may, at the end of my wrap-ups, talk about a couple of things that I'm planning to get to in the next month. But I'm not going to make them a regular thing because I don't stick to them, and it's just silly for me to take the time filming and you all to take the time to watch it and then me not actually read those things. So, without further ado, this is what I read in December. December was kind of a quiet month for me, just like November was, and that's okay. It was really busy with the holidays and things like that, and I don't actually have, like, time off or vacation time for holidays, so I got Christmas Eve off and Christmas Day off, and that was pretty much it. So, not a lot of reading time. But I did manage to finish a few really great things. The first book I finished in December was Fortune Smiles by Adam Johnson. I just talked about this in my Best Books of 2015 video. This is a short story collection by Adam Johnson. His novel, The Orphan Master's Son, won the Pulitzer a few years ago, and I read that and loved it. So I was really excited to get my hands on his short story collection. This just won the National Book Award for Fiction. And it was amazing. There are 6 short stories in this collection, and they're all very different. Like, the tone and the characters are different, but thematically they were kind of similar, which I really like in a short story collection. So even though each story had a different feel to it and was very unique and stood out in my mind, thematically the collection as a whole worked. I think I'm going to do a full review on this. I'm not 100% sure, but I did give this collection 5 out of 5 stars. Each short story stood beautifully on its own, and each short story was a 5-star read for me. So that's the first thing I finished in December, and I was off to a really good start. Unfortunately, the next book I finished was not so great. I read and sort of also listened to on audiobook My Life in Middlemarch by Rebecca Mead. I won this as part of a prize that I won during Dewey's 24-hour readathon, and I was really excited to read it because I had heard great things about it when it came out, I think in 2014 or 2013, pretty recently. So I had heard that you didn't really have to like or have even read Middlemarch to read this book, and that it was kind of about how a book can impact an individual's life, which it is to an extent, but you really need to have read Middlemarch to appreciate this book, and you should probably have enjoyed Middlemarch quite a bit because there's a lot about Middlemarch in this book, which I guess I should have been prepared for based on the title. I read Middlemarch in April, or March and April, I think, and I gave it 3 stars. It was good. I liked it, but I wasn't like a huge fan, and I wouldn't read it again. So reading this, like, there's a lot of plot synopsis about Middlemarch, and there's a lot of discussion about the characters, and some of it was insightful, but overall, I didn't really enjoy this book, and I didn't get out of it what I was expecting to, so I ended up giving this 2 stars. Next, I finished the Imperial Raj trilogy by Ann Leckie, so I rounded it out with Ancillary Mercy, which just came out in October. I previously, obviously, read Ancillary Justice and Ancillary Sword, and enjoyed them both immensely. And this was no exception. I actually did give this book 5 stars. I gave the first 2 books, I think, either 3 or 4. I think I gave one of them 3 and one of them 4. I'm not sure. But this book, the way that the trilogy wrapped up, I thought it was done so well. And I didn't realize how profound of an impact the characters had on me until I was nearing the end of this book. And I was like, no, I don't want it to end. Don't let it end. But again, I think that this is a must-read science fiction series for anyone. The themes are really profound, and it's much more character-driven than a lot of science fiction that I've read, which I definitely appreciated. Do not be intimidated by things you may have heard about this series, most notably the fact that the gender pronouns are a little bit different, so she uses all feminine pronouns, regardless of the character's actual gender, and I don't think that makes these books more difficult. If anything, I think that it adds a really interesting amount of depth to the story, and it makes you think a lot, but in a good way, not in like a strenuous and tedious way. Anyway, absolutely love this trilogy. I'll definitely revisit it sometime down the road, and like I said, I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. I can't really tell you what it's about, because then I would spoil the first 2 books, but I was really pleased with the direction that the trilogy took. Then I went on a bit of a children's book binge. If you watched my December and Christmas haul, you've already seen these, but I went to the bookstore one day, I came back with these as well as a couple of other things, and I sat down and read all 3 of these in very rapid succession. So I read The Fox and the Star by Coralie Bickford Smith, which is a really adorable story about a fox and a star. And it's wonderfully illustrated and just really beautiful. Coralie Bickford Smith is a designer for Penguin, and I really love her work, and I am really happy to support her in this endeavor as well, and I just think that this is a beautifully made book, and I'm really happy to have a copy of it. I gave the story overall 3 stars. I also read an actual picture book, which is Home by Carson Ellis. I talked about this in that same haul, of course. Carson Ellis illustrates the Wildwood Chronicles, which are written by her husband, Colin Malloy, and I've always been a big fan of her illustrations, and I love her style, and I just think that this book was absolutely beautiful. I am so pleased to have read it. Of course, it took me like all of 10 minutes to read, but I was totally immersed in the illustrations. They're very detailed and just excellently done, and I am so pleased to have this as well, and again, to support Carson Ellis as an artist. So if you have any children in your life, or if you are interested in taking a peek for this yourself, I highly recommend it, and I think I give this one 3.5 or 4 stars overall. For a picture book, it was really, really well done. And the last picture book I read, or the illustrated book that I read, was George Saunders' The Very Persistent Gappers of Fripp. This is an awesome little story, and of course I love George Saunders' short fiction. This is the story about a little town on the coast, and they raise goats for a living, and there are these creatures called gappers who come out of the sea at night, and they just love goats. They love goats so much, so they attach themselves to the goats overnight and squeal with happiness, and they drive everyone crazy because they actually make the goats really sick when they do this, and the goats like pass out because they're covered in these little fur balls. It's really funny, but it's also kind of a moral tale. So there's one of the gappers on a goat. Like I said, the goat will be like covered in gappers. It's so funny. It's also a moral tale, and it's just a really beautiful story. It's beautifully illustrated by Lane Smith. I am in love with these illustrations. I showed a few when I hauled it, but just to give you an idea of her work, it's really, really nicely done. I am really impressed with the book overall. There's some goats covered in gappers. And I'm really pleased to have this. They just reissued this. It's a story that Saunders wrote quite a while ago, but they just released it in this beautiful hardback edition, and I gave this 4 stars. It actually made my best of 2015 list as well in the best children's book category. So definitely recommend picking this up if you are a fan of George Saunders or of beautifully illustrated books. And yes, do this. Next, I read The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. Like I said, I had a really good December, even though I only read a few books, and this was my 3rd 5-star read for the month, which is like unheard of. I think I only gave like 10 or so books 5 stars the whole year, so the fact that 3 of them were in December is outrageous. This was so good. So this is, of course, day 2 of the Kingkiller Chronicles. It's the sequel to The Name of the Wind, which I have recommended for people who are devout readers of literary fiction who are looking to get into fantasy. And this book was so beautifully written. The characters are amazing. The story was amazing. I mean, this is like almost 1,000-page book, and I think it didn't take me very long to read at all. I was reading it at like 100 pages at a time. I couldn't put it down. This just continues the story of Quoth, and I can't really talk too much about the plot, obviously, because it's a sequel, but absolutely adored this book. I am so sad that book 3 isn't out yet. because at the end of it, I was like, I turned the last page and I was like, okay, more please. I would like more please. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen for me right now. Definitely recommend this series though, and like I said, I gave this book 5 stars. The last book I managed to finish in December was 2 A.M. at the Cat's Pajamas by Marie-Helene Bertino. I heard really good things about this story. It is a Christmas story. It's set on Christmas Eve in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, right? I believe so. Yeah, it was a really fun read. It was definitely very seasonal. I liked reading it around the holidays. I finished it the day after Christmas, so that was nice. And I thought that the characters were really great, and I like the way that she tells the story. So every chapter, she just breaks it down kind of by hour. She lets you know what time it is. So the whole story takes place over the course of a day. I think it starts at 7 a.m. and it ends, it starts at 7 a.m. and it ends at 2 a.m. So not even a full 24 hours. It was definitely a fun read. It was really heartwarming and lovely, and I gave it 3 stars overall. So that's all I managed to finish in December. Also in December, I listened to the majority of the audiobook for Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, which I just finished today, which is the 3rd of January. Really enjoyed that, of course. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, and I'm re-listening to them all on audiobook, and I'm really enjoying that as well, but I'm kind of taking my time with it. I'm not in any rush, so it took me quite a while to get through, but I'm through it now. I also started listening to The Golden Compass, or Northern Lights, by Philip Pullman. I've never read the His Dark Materials trilogy before, and of course a couple of people on BookTube who I really admire, including Holly from Library at the Edge of the World and Jen Campbell, really adore the trilogy. I missed out on it somehow while I was growing up, but I'm listening to it now, and the audiobook is excellent. It's been my running book. I'm hoping to finish that next week. I also started reading The Door by Magda Százbo. I'm not sure how to say that. She's a Hungarian author. This I've had for a while, and I was interested in it, but I wasn't super enticed to pick it up until I started reading Best of 2015 lists, and this one kept popping up everywhere. So this was written quite a while ago, but it was just recently translated and published by the New York Review of Books. I am enjoying this. I'm only about 50 pages in. It's really a slow read. The language is really beautiful, and it just takes some time to kind of take it all in. But I am enjoying it, and I'll return to it eventually. I'm just not sure when. And the other book I started reading at the end of December is The Trip to Echo Spring on Writers and Drinking by Olivia Lang. It takes me a long time to get through nonfiction books like this, but I'm flying through this. I've only sat down with it like once or twice I think, and I'm on page 70, so that's a lot faster than I usually read nonfiction. It's a really cool story. It's kind of about Olivia Lang's journey to unearth the drinking histories of 6 famous American authors. So those authors are F. Scott Fitzgerald, Ernest Hemingway, Tennessee Williams, John Berryman, John Cheever, and Raymond Carver. And it's not necessarily like there's a chapter devoted to each, or a section devoted to each author. It's kind of all over the place, and she kind of maps out the similarities and differences and the friendships between these men, as well as kind of tells her own story. Definitely really interesting. I have not read work by Tennessee Williams, John Cheever, or Raymond Carver, so I'm looking forward to doing that soon to get, a little more background and a little bit more into it. But I am enjoying this, and I will hopefully finish in January. So those are the things I read in December. Like I said, even though it was kind of a slower month for me, it was a great one, and I hope you all have a great December as well. Please let me know what your favorite book was that you read in December, and I am happy to chat about anything that I read as well down in the comments. I will be back soon. Thanks, y'all. Bye.